uncomfortably accurate given the whole picture. It's like watching the movie for over and over again. Maybe I should explain. Uh, for about 55 years, I've been a global macro investor, and I learned that many of the things that surprised me never happened in my lifetime before. So when I would see certain things happen that were like that, I would go back in history and study prior periods. Studying, for example, the Great Depression allowed us to anticipate the financial crisis in 2008. Anyway, there are three big things that I observed happening that didn't happen in our lifetimes, but happened during the 1930 to 45 period. And they are the creation of enormous amounts of debt and the printing of money to pay for those debts, and it having its economic effects on inflation and growth. The second is internal conflicts over the largest wealth gaps we had since then, values gaps, and the rise of populism of the right and the left. Those conflicts, again, largest since that 1930 to 45 period. And then the rise of a great power, producing a great powers conflict internationally, with the rise of China as a great power, challenging the United States and with Russia. So the great power conflict, that also is the most that's happened since the Great Depression. So because those three things are happening now, and I went back and I needed to study the cycles, what's happened over longer periods of time. So I studied the last 500 years, because these big cycles take about 75 years, give or take about 50. So, like the rise and decline of the British Empire, the rise and decline of the debt. And that dynamic I shared in the book, and I also shared it in an animated video, which is called The Changing World Order. And that creates a path. Now, it's not just because they repeat in this way, but one can see the cause-effect relationships that are happening. And so that has pretty much transpired according to script. We can get into those pieces, but I'd say those are the three main ones. There were two others that had big effect that I paid more attention to, that I'll mention. One was acts of nature in the form of droughts, floods, and pandemics. They were very disruptive when they happened, killed more people and toppled more empires or orders than others. And then also, of course, over a period of time, there's learning and producing new technologies that raises living standards. It's raised per capita income, life expectancy, and so on and so. But those five factors transpire in ways that we've seen before to create this big cycle. And it's if we can look at the cause-effect relationships, that's what I want to pass along, because I'm 74 years old, and I'm in a phase in my life that I want to pass along the things that are of value. And I think this is an important thing. But yes, it's transpiring according to script. I don't want histrionics, I don't want to overdo it. And I also don't want to just jump to conclusions. My goal here is to show people how the machine works, the cause-effect relationship. So I'm going to answer your question by explaining certain things. The dollar is held by countries in the form of debt. In other words, when you say I'm holding the dollar, you're holding a debt instrument. And when we have a problem with the debt instrument, a few problems with it, holding the debt instruments. Those problems are that, first of all, as a result of what the United States was in the world, the largest trading country, the dominant empire, and so on, there's been a a huge accumulation of dollar-denominated debt in dollars, therefore. And there's also been a lot of deficits that had to be funded, which happens by selling dollar-denominated debt, which a lot of foreigners and banks and others bought. And so they have a lot of dollar-denominated debt. Now, if you're a creditor, meaning an owner of dollar-denominated debt, you need to have an interest rate that is high enough to more than compensate you for inflation. And so the production now of a lot more debt and them having a lot of debt, and then also sanctions internationally, which means freezing dollar-denominated debt, all have created a reduction in the demand for dollar-denominated debt. There's also, concerns in the world about some of the things that are going on in the United States, and that's reduced that. As a result of that, you're seeing more transactions take place in other currencies. And if they take place in other currencies, then others want to save in those other currencies because that's how they pay for it. So if you want to save in what you pay for, you save more in it and less in dollars. And so that's the dynamic that is reducing the demand for dollars and dollar debt at the same time as the supply of it keeps coming because we have large deficits. So that there's a supply-demand issue. That supply-demand issue, by the way, also exists in European currencies. Okay, they have too much debt and they're financed the same way, and Japanese currencies. And so what you're seeing is the movement, all that weight of money and debt is causing prices to go up, inflation. And that's also being worsened by the supply chain deteriorations that are due to the international conflict. So, for example, in the case of, let's say, China and the United States and other countries, as they prepare for the possibility of war, they want to be self-sufficient. And so, as a result, they work on being self-sufficient more than integrated and efficient. And so that dynamic is playing an important role too.